In this episode of Car Loop TV, we are going to lower the suspension on my M3. And if you're looking to do this on your car, this is a how-to guide. Please give this video a like and consider subscribing. Hello and welcome to another episode of Car Lube. I'm here with Malcolm.
Hiya.
We're going to fit some suspension to my car today. We've got some Eibach Pro Springs, which we're going to lower the car by about 1.5 centimetres on the back and 2.5 on the front. So enjoy the video. I'm really excited about seeing it low.
So am I. I'm really excited about doing it as well.
And hopefully we'll still get off your ramps.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get it off the ramps.
Okay, Malcolm, so we've got the wheel off. We're just establishing what needs to come off to get to that spring.
So this spring is held up against the bodywork and the lower arm.
Yes.
So the lower arm needs to drop. The shock absorber is the limit for the lower arm, so the shock absorber stops and effectively stops the lower arm from going any lower.
Yes.
So I'm hoping just undoing the bottom of the shock and the anti-roll bar link will allow it to swing down enough. But if it doesn't, there's a bolt where the bottom arm joins the hub that we can undo and just pull the whole bottom arm out. That should allow the spring to drop.
Okay.
But I'm going to try it on just the shock and the anti-roll bar link first of all.
Okay.
And quite often you have to do both sides of the anti-roll bar link at the same time, which isn't a problem because of course we're changing both springs. The bottom of the shock absorber is 18 millimeters.
Ooh, the first bolt is coming off.
Yeah, so that's free. So what I want to do now is just support this so it doesn't unload itself. So anti-roll bar link next. Yeah, so the anti-roll bar link is 16 for the nut. Come on, blimey. That's on tight. There is a flat on either side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And normally I just drop a span into it, but it's a very narrow gap.
Yeah.
And it's got a flange on it. So hopefully I can just grip the flange. Easier than I thought. The reason I'm taking this off is in case it restricts the drop of the lower arm. So that's now just popped out of the anti-roll bar itself. So there's a bolt here going through the hub. So there'll be a bush in the middle of that hub.
Come in?
Yep. Okay. Then to one side. Now this will ping.
Protect your eyes, people.
So here is a level sensor. So I need to get that off so I don't stress it.
Okay.
What it is your headlamp level sensor. Yeah, so there's a 10mm bolt nut going through the swinging arm.
So it's very important this comes off, otherwise it could end up...
You could damage the sensor.
Yeah.
And that'll give you error messages and no headlamp control. There we go. Okay, so with any luck, there we go.
Spring is out.
One spring. So let's just pop that off. So there's the original. Nice shiny one is the new one. And you can see there is a slight difference in height. And that will translate to exactly that drop when it's on the car, assuming the spring rate is the same.
Well, hopefully it's not, because I'm hoping it's a little bit stiffer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it might not drop that much. Be interesting to measure that actually.
Well, by sight that looks about 2 centimetres.
Yeah.
It's supposed to drop by 1.5 centimetres.
So the stiffer rate will hopefully account for that. And there's a spring base that sits in the swinging arm. That's obviously designed to locate into there. A couple of legs on there. So one sits outside there. That's the longer one, and the shorter one sits in there. So it's got to go that way around. So that needs to go up into there. There's a tooth there that's sitting into that hole. A tooth on this side that locates on the swinging arm. And there's a The top of the spring sits in the appropriate slot on that side. Just squeeze that in, see if that wants to go in. So now it's just this one. And the problem with these is because it's a swivel bush,
They move.
and don't want to go straight back in.
So that was a bit more fiddly just because the bush is swivelling.
Yes, and because things are under tension, everything is pushed out of alignment. So for instance, the spring is now pushing on that bottom arm, and even though we're jacking it up, it's pushing it to one side, so I have to try and get everything lined up. So once it's in, it's relatively straightforward.
This side of the wrap, apart from the anti-roll bar.
Apart from the anti-roll bar link, but I'll leave that off until we've dropped the other side and changed that over. But the spring's in situ. It's tight against it, stops top and bottom. Job done.
Great. Other side then.
So there's no level centre on this side of the car, so we don't need to worry about that. Just pop the same two bolts out, push down on the arm, and the spring comes out down the other side. So you can see that turning.
Yeah.
So I've got to try and stop that turning.
So it's round but flat on two edges.
Yeah, 2 edges, but you need a thin spanner to get in there. Once the friction takes over, it's not a problem. There we go. Do the other side. There we go, that's not going anywhere.
So that now is completely done.
Yep.
The rear end of the car is lowered. Okay, so we're round to the front now. We've done the rear. What's involved in the front, Malcolm?
So one of the first things to do is remove the EDC control wiring. So there's a simple block on here, a little cap that should pop off. Poke the wiring through the cap and unplug it from the top of the strut like that. So that's just an electrical connection to the damper mechanism.
Okay.
Okay, next thing to do is drop the caliper off.
Now we understand we can do this job without removing the caliper.
Technically, but then there's a danger of stressing the cable at the back, and also the fact you've got that bouncing around on the floor.
So it makes,
and it's nicely painted, so it makes sense to drop it out of the way. So need to loosen all these cables off. They just wiggle out of their slots. That's just to support it. So I'm just undoing the lower trailing arm control arm bolt with a couple of 18mm spanners, just so it'll swivel in the joint rather than stressing the bush as we drop the strut. Then we're going to do the anti-roll bar link. So we've got the headlight adjuster sensor up here. Once I just pull that off, I'm going to remove the clamp bolt, which also supports those brackets. So the clamp bolt squeezes the hub mount onto the bottom of the suspension strut. Right. Anti-roll bar link. Clean out the groove where the clamp is against the strut. Hopefully that will encourage it to release from the strut. Again. Perfect, thank you, that'll do. It's just to support that weight while we undo the top struts.
So at the moment that is not supporting its weight because we've got the jack underneath.
That's right. These are quite tight because they have thread lock on them, which I shall put back on. All three bolts are out. You just let it go down at that rate, that's fine. So just pull it down enough to clear the inner arch, and then that should clear the wing. So what we're going to do here is where the shock absorber goes into the hub mount, there is a clamp bolt, and we're just going to drive a chisel in between the two halves of that point just to separate it a bit. and hopefully that will allow us to free that shock absorber from the hub, because at the moment it is not budging. So gentle tapping with a hammer just to create a gap. This is just to help break the seal. It can take some time, but it will eventually come out, and eventually you'll get to the stage where it starts to turn, and then you should just be able to pull it out. And there we have our strut out. Right, we're going to compress the spring so we can undo the top mount. So we're going to do this from the bottom. One on either side. One on either side so we get even compression. I don't want to do it all the way at the moment. I want to take a bit of just a tension off here, but I still need enough just so I can get this top nut off. So I'm just winding that nut. There we go. So we have the top mount, the dust cover gets caught on the spring, so just carefully feed that through the spring. Patience is the key. So there is a cover, and there is also a bump stop there. So as if the suspension does bottom out, this is the last port of call for it. Okay, so we're just going to re-grease the track on here. Just put some fresh grease in there on both sides.
What do you think that bearing's for?
It's the swivel to allow because the whole weight of the car is going through that, but it still allows the car to steer.
Okay.
Because when you're steering, this whole thing is moving. Now this is, I mean, it's in good nick anyway, but now is the opportunity to do it. It's just a simple ball race in a plastic track.
Well, car's done 50,000 miles, so it makes good sense to do that when it's in pieces.
Yep. Okay. So here we have the old spring and the new spring. And while they're not side specific, there is a top and a bottom. The tighter curl is for the bottom, and the bigger curl sits in the top there. So we need to compress the new spring to get it on. So we're going to ensure that the bottom of the spring sits in the correct location on the top of the strut. Again, ease it over the dust cover. So turn the spring till it sits in there. Again, there's a space where it was sitting on there, although it's not hugely important on that one. Drop that into position. And then, of course, I've put the nut somewhere. There we are. Just loosen that up a bit. Then we can take this strut off. Okay, then we need to make sure this is down enough that that plate is trapped. And the strut is back together. So when putting this back together, we need to make sure that lump sits in that groove where the wedge is currently. Slide that on, and then pull out the wedge. Put the bracket back on. Long bolt through. Right, are we on the jack? Need to line up the peg because there is a locating peg on the top of the mount. Need to twist those round. There's a hole. There's the hole for the bolt, but underneath here there's a peg hole, and on top of the strut there's a peg, which I'm not sure you can see. Yeah, just visible there on the left hand side of the bottom hole. Right, hold it there. Get that one on so it doesn't drop. So just some Loctite. Just put a little bit in to the thread. There we go. Right, you can drop the jack. Thank you very much. Just looking at the pin configuration to make sure I don't put it in a strange angle.
So this is just plugging the EDC back in the top of the suspension. Yeah. And I suppose after this we just need to put everything back on that we took off.
Yep.
And then
a good clean. And then look forward to slightly lowered suspension.
That's the job completed.
Yep. Drop it down now. It won't settle straight away because we're on the ramp. As you drive it back, it will settle. Plus it'll settle over a few days as well as the springs bed in. Believe it or not, they actually unwind a little. Yeah. So you won't get the initial drop straight away. You'll see some, but it will go down a little further.
And how did you find that as a job?
As a job, that was relatively straightforward.
We've both got muck on our
faces.
Yeah,
we have. Very mucky. Very mucky, sweaty job, but no, all went to plan. No issues at all, really. As expected, with a couple of things I didn't know about the E90s, so now I know them. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's lower it down.
Here goes.
So on the front there we had a 2.5 centimetre drop, and on the rear it's only 1.5. But as you said, that may come down more with a little bit of driving.
Yeah.
So we just need.
Things do tend to settle.
Okay, so I suppose we just need to torque the bolts up to spec, and we'll drive them out the garage. Hello and welcome to episode 25 of E30 M3 Recreation. In this episode, we will take a look at what's involved in fabricating M3 bumpers, and make sure you watch till the end. I can hardly contain myself. We're going to start the car for the very first time.